You are listening to Out of the Darkness by Clarissa Clarke. Previously, Reapy took them to the past, Verity took Alec key searching, and Alina took a nap. That means we're ready for Choices, Actions, Consequences. Chapter 5. Laughter exploded through the air as he stepped off the starship. Alec's feelings were so strong that he had sent his thoughts throughout the planet. He wondered if his hair would turn pink. His cheeks were so hot with embarrassment. For days after that, the Zambosians congratulated him on such a fine joke. His cheeks eventually cooled down, and Reapy assured him that his hair would turn pink only when hers did, which was never. Alec roamed the planet with Verity and Alina, enjoying his freedom and newfound sense of self. He also enjoyed learning that his superpowers were real. Making a pencil slide, not roll, across his desk turned out to be an extraordinary mental ability called telekinesis. His mother had sent him to a psychiatrist for that. He knew he had done it, but no one believed him until he came here. You believed in yourself, and that is more valuable than anything they could have done for you. Reapy became his favorite teacher, not because she didn't make him sit all day, but because she encouraged him to be himself. For almost 9 years, he had been the boy his parents wanted. He did what they wanted him to do, when they wanted him to do it. He wore the clothes they picked out, combed his hair flat, tucked his shirt into khaki pants, and his feet into brown loafers. His parents made the money, so they had the authority to decide how it was spent. He could hear his mom telling him even now, "I pay the bills, I buy the shoes. There is nothing wrong with those shoes." The thing his parents didn't seem to understand or care about was that he wanted something different. Even when he asked for shoes that were the same price as the ones she chose for him, his mother still refused. "It's not what they want," he told Verity one day. "I can't have tennis shoes because they want me to have brown loafers." He was smart enough to see it for what it was, a form of control, a show of power. His mother loved to wield it over him, reminding him every chance she got that she was big and he was little. His father stayed silent. If he interfered, she would yell at him too. "You should forgive yourself," Verity said. "Forget? For what?" "You gave up." Her eyes met his as she delivered her message mentally. "You let them break your free will." He broke eye contact with her, looking out across the park, but seeing his past. Alec found himself responsible for his life, choices, actions, consequences. He could have done things differently. He could have thrown fit after fit to get those shoes. Sighing deeply, he shook his head. "I understand the free will stuff," he said, turning back to Verity. "But how do I make it work?" She looked up from her drawing as Alec continued, gesturing at the landscape in front of him. "Nobody's trying to break my free will here. I'm not trying to break theirs. How's it supposed to work at home?" "Compromise." The prickly pucker of his mother's face made him say, "They'll never go for it." Verity rolled her eyes. "Well, how am I supposed to get them to compromise with me?" "Tell your psychiatrist you want them to." For 2 seconds there was complete silence, and then he burst. You're a genius. I know. Still, anxiety and hope filled his next question. What about the shoes? Verity shrugged. They want you to be miserable so they can drain you. So don't be miserable. Defensive, irrational anger burned through him, and he couldn't stop himself from arguing with her. My parents can't drain me. They aren't aliens. Reetby's voice sounded in his head. I am coming. She was beside them before her message was finished. She said my parents were aliens. He pointed an accusing finger at Verity, who shook her head. For a split second, he thought Reetby was going to tell him his parents really were energy-draining aliens. It was Alina who stepped forward. She had been on the swings when Reetby got Verity's call for help. Cheeks rosy from the wind, hair standing out around her face, she patted her belly. My body. Then she held out her hand, palm up, and said, my spirit. Alec leaned in to study what looked like a little star person. In my body, she said, and the spirit disappeared. In my hand, and the spirit reappeared. Pulling out Alec's hand, she tapped his palm. He couldn't believe he was going to try it, but he heard himself say, in my hand. Alina clapped when she saw it and grabbed his hand, pulling it close to her face as she said, pretty! He watched as a tiny spark of light flew to her nose. She giggled and sent a spark of light back to the smiling spirit on Alec's hand. His spirit was tiny, a speck of dust compared to Alina's, but it was sparkling with the light, and Alec realized that he was smiling too. It is the spirit who creates the form it will live in, Reetby said. 8 years, 20 months, and 21 days ago, this spirit began creating your body. Alec looked from his spirit to Reetby, shock shining in his eyes. Every living thing has a spirit, even the trees, she continued. There are different kinds of spirits, however. This is a light spirit. She lifted Alec's hand up in front of his face. It abides by the natural law and uses the light to rejuvenate itself, as do you. There are also dark spirits. We often refer to them as negative spirits. Negative spirits create bodies for themselves as well, but they rejuvenate their forms by draining negative energy from others. If your parents had light spirits, they would never drain you. She chose her words carefully, watching his face as she spoke. He nodded at the spirit in his hand and said, back in my body. The girls studied Alec as he inhaled deeply. So negative spirits are something different than aliens? Yes, Reetby said. Every alien has a spirit. Every human, tree, and animal has a spirit. A light spirit or a dark spirit. Light versus dark, good versus evil, he thought. Is it anything like that? To some it is that simple, Reetby replied. Dark entities terrify and destroy. Light entities seek harmony for themselves and for their spirits. We do not crave power because the ultimate power is inside of us already. We cannot be defeated. Negative entities fail to understand this. They continue to search for ways to destroy the light and all who live with it. Listening to her with such focus, Alec hadn't realized that the sun had almost set. As they turned toward home on planet Zombos, he heard Reetby say, when you love yourself, Alec, the serenity you seek shall be found. You just heard Choices, Actions, Consequences. Chapter 5 from Out of the Darkness by Clarissa Clarke. Coming up, panic melted and fear disappeared. Chapter 6.